All right, welcome everybody. So let's take a look here. All right. So today, first let me start by introducing myself a little bit. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Julio Briones. I am the CEO and senior consultant of Briones Consulting Group. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between the differences between franchising and independent home care ownership. Now, not as a general rule, but just in specifically in the home care space. All right. So one of a little bit about my background as to why would anybody want to talk about this? Now, I've got a lot of years, about 20 years experience in the home care space. And, for the last 8 years, I've worked either directly with a franchise company or indirectly by supporting different franchisees as an independent consultant. So, I've got extensive background in working with both independent and franchise, and this is why I decided to do this video. It's a question I actually get a lot, from people that are thinking about starting up their franchise because they know about my background, or I'll sit there and have some strategy sessions with somebody thinking about going into the business, or maybe they've already bought into a franchise and they just kind of want to figure out how to manage or work around their territory. So yeah, so this is where we are now, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what's the difference. All right, so let me get over here. So we will start with, go ahead and get started on here with number 5, startup. All right. So one of the key differences um, when we're talking about franchise versus an independent ownership, it's the startup process. All right. So when you're going to start up with a franchise, you will have people whose job it is to walk you through. All right. So you go through all the rigmarole and you decide that, XYZ franchise company is the one you want to go with. And at that point, you'll have somebody that'll walk you through, you'll pick out your territory and everything else, and now you're waiting and you're going to go through licensing. So every one of these points that I'm going to bring up, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and the cons, of each, of independent versus franchising. So you'll pay your money, you'll it's anywhere from like 30,000. The highest I've seen has been about 65, 70,000 for a franchise fee, and that gets you all the startup stuff, the branding, the licensing. You go through the FDD, you get to select your territory, and at least now you have an established base as to where you're going to begin. All right, you know exactly what parameters are, where you're limited to. Where in independent, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, I'm from this area, and so this is kind of where I want to go. And oh, but I have the whole state. I don't have any of that. We'll get to all of that part later on, but you have some sort of guidance. You have a structure, okay, and this is the big thing. A lot of people, when they go into the home care space, at least from what I've seen, they're either coming from a totally different industry, or they're coming from being like a caregiver or a nurse or medical director, or somebody that they have some direct experience in the home care industry. And these are the two avenues they take. They'll either go the franchising route, where somebody will walk them through all the business processes, where somebody will at least make an attempt to explain to them how to run the business and budgeting and things like that, versus going through when they're an independent home care agency owner, where they're going to spend a lot of time doing self research, talking to professionals, you know, um, talking possibly to what you call it, consultants, and going through and trying to get this grasp of it. They'll do a lot of YouTube research, and this is where the process comes in, where a franchisee will rely more heavily on the support team. All right. So what are the pros and cons? Well, when you're looking at it from a cost perspective, you're looking at a much higher entry when you're coming in through a franchise, generally. Okay, so this is what I mean by that. Upfront, you're going to pay your franchising fee, whatever that may be. I'm not getting into anybody's business model here in particular, but whatever your franchising fee is going to be, you're going to pay that. Then you're going to have to pay to go to their training, or actually depends on the franchise. Some of them, many of them, will give you that first initial training as part of your franchising fees. Then you're still going to have to pay for consultants to help you with licensing, unless you're familiar with that process yourself, or you're in an unregulated state. And then you're sitting there waiting, whatever your license regulations are, and you keep it moving until you're ready to open up. All right. You get very little autonomy, and you're told when you can open, when you have to have certain steps by. You got to go through whatever the franchise's training is, and so on. So start to finish it. I mean, I've seen it go from as quickly as about 45 days. And I think the longest I've ever worked with a franchisee has been, close to 8 or 9 months before their licensing. But that was in that was actually in the state of Connecticut, and it was a licensing hangup that messed them up a little bit. All right. So that is number one, the startup. And those are the key differences. One, you have somebody to kind of hold your hand and walk you through. Under independent, you're kind of figuring it out on your own. Either way, you're looking at consultants are going to get involved, because a lot of people don't understand the licensing process. All right. So next, next big difference, and this one's actually pretty big for the startup phase, especially in the first 1 to 3 years of operation. The power of recognition. Okay, so this really depends on whether you are with a newer franchise system or if you're with a well-established franchise system. All right, so for example, you have a newer franchise system, something smaller, maybe under 20, 30 units. Actually, I'm going to venture to say anything under like 30 or 40 units, you're not as recognizable, especially if you're the first franchisee in a particular state, versus one of the bigger players like Comfort Care, Comfort Keeper, Bright Star. Then there's dozens more out there. But that power of recognition is very helpful. So it saves you one key step when it comes to the beginning of the marketing process. When you're coming in, we're looking for know, like, and trust in order to get clients out of a facility and to build up that trust. Well, that first part, no, it's much easier to get to. There's a difference coming in saying, "Hi, I'm from Bright Star," or "Hi, I'm from Comfort Keepers," or "Hi, I'm from Comfort Care," or Home Care Assistants. I think now they're called the Key. If "Hi, I'm from one of these agencies that's well known, has a lot of recognition, has been around for a while," versus "Hi, I'm from Julio's Home Care down the street." All right. Not in the long run, it doesn't really make a big difference, because in the long run, your marketing efforts are going to depend on the ability that you have to provide service. But for initial startup, there is a slight advantage to having a well known franchise brand. Again, smaller franchises, it changes a little bit, and that's really going to go on how much support you have on the franchise side. But that, I'm going to tell you, just in my experience, I'm not for or against franchising. All right, I think they each have their pros and cons. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, how well are you apt to put your message out there? How capable is your staff? How capable are your caregivers? How much value do you bring to the table? That's what's going to dictate your long-term growth. All right, but power of recognition, at least in those initial few contacts, can be helpful. They're not they're not really going to dictate, and if there's mixed reviews on this as to your success rate, it doesn't really make a difference over long-term success, but that initial success, it can save you a little bit of time, unless you have a good strategy in place pre-launch. Now, that's another big thing. Even with a newer franchise system, a younger franchise system that's only got maybe that first 5 or 6 or 10 units, if you have a proper pre-opening strategy, if you're working with a good consultant, if you've got a good team in place, got good content writers, and you really ramp up that pre-opening process. So this way, when you're franchisee, or even if you're an independent owner and you're just trying to figure this out and you're getting out there, as long as you've done about 45 days, maybe 60 days of prep work before you get out there, and you've done the proper introductions, pre-introduction, that warm, that transitioning from a cold walk-in to a warmer ramp up, as long as you're doing that, you'll be fine. And it really becomes a wash. But initially, if you're with a bigger brand, it can help. All right. Next, we're going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm going to tell you, if you guys visit my website, all right, brionasgroup.com, I actually wrote an article about some of the top issues faced by franchisors, all right, especially emerging brands. And let me tell you, one of the big ones is support. Look, franchisors, all right, the people who own these franchise companies, they do their best. I think there was a guy I talked to on my Puma Richards. I talked to him on my YouTube channel the other day, and not so long ago, you guys can check out the video. He talks about business credit. The He used to be a franchisee. I forget what brand he was with, but he said it best. They try their best. And now here's the problem with that. Franchise support, you got to understand something. A franchise is in the business of teaching you a proven system. But because so many people in the past, over the decades, have been scammed, that we're in a highly litigious society. The support only goes so far. They're going to bring you, teach you, train you how to market, bring you up to speed, train you how to recruit, train you how to do some minor office management stuff. Then you're going to start hearing a lot. Hey, listen, yeah, we'd love to help, but you got to contact your labor attorney. Or, hey, yeah, that's great. You might want to look into hiring a consultant. Or, yeah, look, we'll look at your job ads, but all we can do is give you an industry best practice. So when it comes to support, you get a huge, huge advantage when you pay that franchise fee, because that initial stuff, that stuff that everybody goes out and looks for these consultants and YouTube channels just to try to figure out how to get started, you paid for that up front. That's your franchise fee. All right. That's your initial royalties. That ongoing maintenance, that's your franchise fees. That's your royalty fees. This is what you get. You don't have to guess about what software to use. You don't have to guess, where you don't have to go out and find and go through 4 or 5 or 6 consultants that may or may not know what they're talking about in order to help your business go. That there's a lot of good guys, and I'm going to tell you, there's a few really well-established consultants out there that we all do something different, but some of them are really solid when it comes to giving you tips to help your business go forward. But I gotta say it, there's also a lot of consultants out there that are out there to make a fast buck off of your sweat, and they'll take money from you. All right, I gotta tell you, during COVID, you have no idea how many calls I used to get from people. Oh yeah, I talked to so and such consultant. They ripped me off for $8,000, $12,000, $15,000, $5,000. All my whole life savings. And it's rough. Please, if you're going the independent route and you don't have that support system and you want somebody to do that ongoing strategy, that ongoing support with you, which, shameless plug, my company, we do that. brionasgroup.com. You can check out some of our services. But some of these other consultants, they do it. There's a few. Hey, if you don't want to use me, but you want a good referral, contact me. I will tell you who some of the better people are out there, who some of the more reputable people are out there. If you want to take a look for yourself, you don't take my word for it. Look, Google any one of these companies that you want to do. Big, 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 big red flags. If their company is xyzconsulting.wix.com, all right, or something like that, hey, that's a red flag. They're not even in business long enough to have a real website. If you see that they're operating out of a PO box, that's got to tell you something. They don't even have an office. You know, if they have 0 Google reviews, how long have they been in business? Please choose carefully who you're going to work with. All right. If you're doing the independent route, if you're doing the franchise route, understand and just come in knowing this. They will only take your business so far. And it's not that they don't want to a lot of times, it's a lot of times they just legally cannot. There's a principle in the law that deals with franchising. I'm not a lawyer, so please, I'm just going based off of my personal and professional experience. It's called the joint employer doctrine, where they have to be careful how they help you, because if one of your employees looks at the situation and says, "Well, the franchise told them to do it," now that they can connect the dots, and legally the franchisor could be held on the hook with whatever mistakes you make. All right. And I'm going to tell you, I've been there. I've been to court on a number of occasions when I used to work directly with franchises. All right. And other times that I've worked with franchisors, and I've had to sit there and justify to a judge my actions and explain to the judge how, my team, the company I was working with, we maintained that arm's length, and that we did not have direct involvement with the decision making or the management of those employees. So believe me, a lot of times it may not be that they don't want to, it might just be that they can't. All right. Doesn't make it any better. It is what it is. People will always blame corporate greed and blame all this other stuff. But the fact is, this is the realities. Up front, you're going to get front loaded with a ton of help. But there will come a point where you won't be able to, you're going to have to go and find a consultant anyway. And if you are an independent, you're just going to start with a consultant right from day one. And either situation, I'm going to highly suggest do your research. Any good consultant worth their salt will have reviews up. And many of them will have clients that will allow you to call them for a reference. Look, give me a call. You want to talk to some of my other clients? I will talk to them, and then I will give you their contact information if they're open to it. And this, because I know the quality of what I do, and the better consultants out there won't have those issues. If anybody balks at it, they either have no clients to speak of, done a bad job, or it's a scam. Biggest thing, like I said, I'm going to stress this again, go check out their website. If they are strictly at, Wix dot blah blah blah, or what's another one, Squarespace dot blah blah blah, that means they're not even paying for their web hosting. That tells me that they don't have a good internet presence. Even if it's just a placeholder website, make sure it's a legit. It's HTTPS dot whatever.com. All right. Just nothing else, no extra steps. And make sure that they have solid reviews either on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google. You should be able to look them up. Don't get ripped off. And that's a pet peeve of mine. I think I'm going to do a video on that probably in another week or so. All right. So enough of my griping. Let's move on to number 2. All right. Buying power. This is another huge difference when it comes to, being an independent home care agency versus being franchised. Bigger franchises have many units. Some of them have 200 or 300 office locations across the country, or even more, if you take account their global market share. That means they have a lot of buying power. Now, does that mean that as an independent home care owner, you won't? No. There are organizations like the Home Care Association of America, whatever your local in your state is, the Home Care Association. You can become member of Chamber of Commerce. Sometimes they have group buying options. And then you have organizations like the Independent Home Care Alliance, and then there's other smaller organizations out there, the same thing. You have different home care and hospice associations. Depending on where you are, just go find a professional organization and you can still take advantage of some of these group purchase discount rates. All right. But with a franchise, you're going to get them right away. You don't have to be in business X amount of time. And again, it's not like they're doing this altruistically. They're not doing it for free. It's part of your franchise fees. It's part of the service you and your service expectations from having paid that fee. And these are things you gotta keep in mind. And these are things that you gotta understand, because I used to hear it a lot. Franchisees would be part of the system for 2, 3, 4 years, and all of a sudden you'd hear the complaints. Oh, the franchise doesn't do anything for me. Well, no, that's not true. There's a lot of things that are done, and I'm telling you from experience, having been in the franchising world, having worked with independent agencies, and having even helped a number of franchisees that left the system and transitioned into independent ownership. I've gone through this a lot, and believe me, when you go from having all of these things in place, all these systems in place, from being a franchisee to all of a sudden have to figure it out for yourself, sometimes that's a bit of a transition. It's a bit of a stretch. All right. So again, not one is better than the other. It's just understand that you're going to get some things up front, other things you're going to have to find different ways to work around it. All right. And the number one thing that you get with, the number one difference between franchises and independents, you get a territory or service area. Now I know, look, some of you watching this video, I can already see it. I could see it in the comments in my head. I can see this on everywhere else. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you watching. All right. But now, when it comes to being a franchisee versus an independent home care agency owner, here's one of the biggest things. When you are buying into a franchise, you're going to sit down with their franchise developer, their salesperson. All right. Hopefully, that person will be somewhat knowledgeable of the industry. There's a couple of guys out there with different franchise systems that I've worked with in the past that are fantastic at this. They don't have a home care background per se, but they do have a very strong working knowledge of the franchise, of the home care space, through different experiences and from actually making the professional effort to learn about it. And I've actually done a consulting with a few of these franchise developers so that I can explain to them what makes a good territory. Which, if you're a franchisor or a franchise developer, feel free to get a hold of me. All right, but one of the things is the territory. This one, everybody picks an area they're going to service, whether you're a franchise or not. The difference is how limited a geography you're going to work with and how much help you get in defining this. Now, this happens to be something my company's specialty, because we have a deep working understanding whether where the territory, what it should look like, what income levels you're looking at, depending on the type of clients you're trying to look for. If you're trying to service private pay, which is again our specialty, we can tell you the difference between where caregivers live, where your clients are going to live, how to target the facilities, and whether something makes sense or not, and help you design this territory based on availability. But most times people just wing it. Like, it's really just a shotgun approach. People that go into franchising, a lot of them, I'm going to say probably about 40, 50% have zero home care experience. So what they do is they come in and they're like, "Ooh, that looks like it has a lot of money. Yeah, this territory looks great," without understanding that they've completely screwed themselves when it comes to recruitment. Others, they do it the other way around. They have that industry knowledge, but they don't really have a lot of experience when it comes to knowing where their client base lives. So they'll have great territory for, let's say, Medicaid, but not a great territory when it comes to working with private pay. And there's a lot of different things. So it's really going to depend on the brand and who the developer is as to whether or not something like this is going to work out for them. But when you're an independent home care agency owner, you're not bound by geography. So you don't even know where to begin. And the fact is, listen, when we're talking about franchising, you're looking at territories. I think some of the smaller territories out there are about 100, population, or I forget what the square mileage would be on that. And some of the bigger territories out there are like 500,000 population, and everything in between, and or beyond, either way. There's a lot of different variables that go in depending on which brand you're going into, but it's defined. That's the whole thing. It's defined. You know exactly where it is. Look, even if you're talking about an average territory of, let's say, 250 to 350,000 population in a given geographical space, you're still looking at only you're going to cap out somewhere between 1.25 and $2 million. All right, because if you don't have a clear understanding of how to grow, how to break those plateaus within your service area or territory, you're not doing anything anyway. So, on that note, I will give the advantage to the franchise, because a lot of times the franchise will help you develop that or understand the basics of that territory while in during the selection process. You can modify it, you can select it, you can go back and say, this, I don't really like this one. Do you have something else? And you can work with them on that end. Where if you're an independent, you're kind of just winging it and you're hoping for the best. I work with a lot, both franchisees and with independents, and this is one of the first exercises that I usually do work with a home care agency owner. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I've got clients that are brand new trying to figure this out, and they're just going through the home care franchise process, that they want to buy into a territory and they just don't know which is going to be the best for them, versus and all the way up to independent home care agency owners that are doing 2, 3, $4 million a year, that just want a better understanding of their territory so that they can break these plateaus and everything in between on that too. But that is the number one difference between the two. And I'm going to tell you honestly, the the bi- the big that difference can set you back. Having a territory can speed up your process to profitability by 2 to 3 months. Having a well planned territory can reduce your average time to first client from anywhere from 4 to 9 months on average in the industry. And it can actually reduce it down to you to I mean, some of my best clients, we've done the territory pre-work and have been able to get them their first clients from day one of marketing till about 30 days. All right, 28 to 32 days. There's been some of my best clients out there. And I'm talking about going out there, targeting facilities, getting in the door, meeting the right people, and getting that first client signed. Zero experience, never been out there and doing it before. And that's the difference. So when we're talking about dollars, that's going to be your biggest benefit of having a well defined, well optimized, well planned out territory. All right. So this has been our presentation on the top 5 differences between independent and franchised home care ownership. We hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns that's watching this, please leave them in the comments and we will go over it. I'll go ahead and answer a few of them. If not, if you're watching the replay on our YouTube channel, please share this. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to the replay on our audio version on wherever your favorite podcasts are played, thanks for being a supporter, and we'll catch you guys soon.